You can practice a sales call or a leadership call as many times as you want, but as soon as you make the call, all bets are off. And the ability to be available to still offer a solution confidently in the face of your team or that client is what creates success.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 247 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. My guest on this episode is Meshell Baker, Director of Global Sales Development at the National Association of Sales Professionals. Meshell, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thank you, Bernie. It's so great to be here. I love what Vengreso is doing out there, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to have our conversation about the 6 steps for building high-performance sales teams. Before we get into that, Meshell, I want to ask you to tee something up very important for my listener. As you know, this is the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. So, Meshell, why is this topic, 6 steps for building high-performance sales teams, why is this topic important for marketing professionals to understand and embrace?
Great question, Bernie. It is imperative right now. The buyer has become quite savvy. They do their homework. They look around. There's so much information out there, and buyers actually buy for emotional reasons and justify with logic. So when you partner a great sales team with an incredible marketing department, you're creating content and language that really taps into what the buyer is looking for.
Couldn't agree more. Content and language that resonates with the buyer. And of course, that requires a partnership between marketing and sales. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So for a little context, before we get into the 6 steps, why don't you provide a little bit of an introduction background to your organization, the National Association of Sales Professionals?
Well, the National Association of Sales Professionals is a global association, and we are actually the largest online community of sales professionals in the world, and we're dedicated to empowering dynamic sales leaders, teams, and professionals in the rapidly changing worlds of sales. So we're really looking at empowering sales teams, leaders, and professionals to be value first in all that they do and encouraging those buyers.
Value first. Love that. Fantastic. And your role at NASP?
My role is I am the Director of Global Sales Development, as well as the founder of Women of Sales and Influence. So my initiative is to expand our reach globally, and I do that through different platforms and communication and the connections on LinkedIn, as well as the interviews I do to support women in sales on Mondays on Facebook Live.
Fantastic. Love all you're doing there. So let's get into it, Meshell. You've got this formula, if I can call it a formula.
Yes.
And so we'll ask you to walk us through it. It's going to be a little bit of a rapid fire for our listener here in the next 20, 25 minutes. The 6 steps for building high performance sales teams. So let's begin with step number 1.
Step number 1 is where we build the foundation. And this is part of our 45-day challenge series. So one of the things that we are doing is empowering not only sales strategy, but actually empowering professionals to look at the conscious and unconscious way they sell, helping to build the identity of a high-performing salesperson, team, and leader. And we do that by showing them how to create a vision. What do I want to be? What does that look like on the back end? It's that begin with the end in mind sort of thing.
Okay, it's the power of the mind then, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so then that takes us to step number 2.
So step number 2, now that you've created a vision, what happens is there are no Santa Claus or fairies out there that are going to deliver it to you overnight. So now we look at our current, I know, unfortunately, Bernie, there's some work involved, right? So now it's how do I take the activities, the mindset of where I am and who I am so that I can create the vision. So it's just saying what doesn't align. And it doesn't mean there's good or bad. What we tell everyone that takes our programs is that whatever you were doing, it served you at some point. So now looking at what doesn't align with where I want to go.
So in that step then, Meshell, are we talking about identifying what those old habits are that are no longer, that don't align with the vision?
Yes, you absolutely want to look at, and so this is that self-analysis, right? And it start with that intrapersonal conversation. How do I influence myself by looking at what doesn't align with where I want to go?
Okay. And is that both from a skill set standpoint, or is that also from a mindset standpoint?
It's mindset and skill set.
Okay. And do you find that this is one of the harder steps that we haven't gotten to step 5 and 6 yet, but I would think that sometimes it's challenging for us to kind of look at things that we're doing that we've been doing for a long time and identify that, hey, that's really not aligned with this new vision. Is that a difficult thing that you encounter?
Yes, this is. So we actually prepare people on the front end by explaining to them the way we learn. And we call it the cycle of growth, but it's going through those phases of unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence and then unconscious competence. So we explain to them that at this point, you are in that phase of, I don't know what I don't know. And that's where we call it deception, and we prepare them. We give them access to us. We give them tools. Remember, this is a 45-day conditioning of behaviors and conscious. So they are receiving videos and exercises, and we're reinforcing that this is going to be difficult, but you keep going like anything. Consistent, persistent wears out resistance.
Oh, I like that. I think you've said that a few times before.
Yes.
You didn't stumble one bit when you said that.
Because it's true.
Yeah. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you're outlining these 6 steps, if you could call attention from a listener, again, where marketing can contribute to these 6 steps so that we're equipping the marketing listener on ways that they can be part of this process and contribute to this process, whether it's directly or even indirectly, just from an awareness standpoint.
Right. This is the part. So when you're looking at your sales teams and they're delivering a new product, right? So the sales team, they're in that part that you've given them all the tools, you've told them the features and benefits and all the things about why this product is going to be incredible. So your own sales team is going to have those moments where they're not necessarily masters at it or they're not necessarily experts, and the marketing to partner with them and remind them, right? To have those ongoing conversations internally to prepare your sales team to step out in front of the buyer and be prepared to show them why this product and the features and benefits will give them the result.
Okay, cool. So let's get to the 3rd step of the 6 steps.
So the 3rd step is building new habits. So this is where you're actually looking at this point, where you're focused on. So again, you have gone through and you're still in that space. So now what we call this is you're in that space of where you've become consciously competent. You know what you need to do, have to do, and should do to create success. This is where you start to get a crossover to around that 21 day where the habits are being built, right? Where they say you hit that 21 day and it still feels a little challenging, but at the same time, you still have that attitude of, I know what my vision is, because you're receiving something daily. Now, for the marketing department, when you're thinking about this is, again, when you're onboarding new clients, when you're building relationships with people, when you're supporting the sales team, this is the cycle of any person who's adopting something new.
Okay, so you mentioned when onboarding new clients. So a salesperson, say, bringing in new clients. At this stage, marketing can be feeding content and messaging that reinforces the new habits.
Reinforces the new habits. Yes, this is where, again, around these 2 steps is where you really want to be supportive. You want to follow up as much as possible. Remember, they say the fortune is in the follow-up and the follow-through, right? This is that great part where you want to stay in front of everything and prepare them, let them know what to expect, follow up.
Yeah. I want to make a quick comment on the conscious competent thing, because that is not something that's unique to just sales training. Athletes do this. A lot of different disciplines do this, where it's the idea of, if you're good at something, you need to know why you're good at it. Specifically, what is it about what you're doing that is good? And then, as you said earlier, if you have to break old habits to kind of break through the things where you're not necessarily succeeding. So being that conscious competent, that's a fabulous principle. It's been around for quite a while, and I think applying it to a sales discipline makes a ton of sense. And then marrying that, if you will, with marketing messaging is a home run.
Yes.
Okay, step number 4.
So step number 4 is disciplined imagination. So this is where you start to invoke and understand that our mind, consciously and unconsciously, is in one of 3 places at all times. So we're either in memory, which is the past, we are in focus, which is the present, or we're in imagination, which is the future. Right? And based off of how you capture someone's attention is either storytelling, testimonials, or metaphors. And the number one way is storytelling, right? And to hold their attention is asking questions. So how does that work for marketing and sales? Is asking a better question, right? So when you are not understanding, this is where sometimes people say it didn't work and they want to point fingers and say it's someone else's fault. It's looking at, how can I communicate this better by asking a question? I don't understand, or how can I help my clients? Or this is based off of what this is. What would this look like? So begin to imagine the outcome that you created. What is the vision, and what question can I ask to help me move forward to create that? Because as Einstein says, our imagination makes us infinite.
Okay. So once again, and you mentioned this, I just want to repeat it for emphasis, and that is with marketing partnering with sales, just in step number 4 alone, by providing the messaging to help salespeople ask the right questions to do that storytelling in a way that is effective to help the prospective customer really understand the outcome and how you can get them there.
Exactly.
We'll be right back with the rest of my conversation with Meshell Baker from National Association of Sales Professionals. If video is part of your marketing mix, and it probably is, I want to encourage you to consider attending Brightcove Play May 14th through the 16th, 2019. Of course, if you're listening to this episode before that date. So you can learn more about the event at play.brightcove.com. Now, during my conversation with Sarah Larson, CMO of Brightcove, she described the event that is now in its 9th year. And I want to let you know that the content at Brightcove Play is content that you're not going to find anywhere else, especially if you just search online. You're not going to find it. By attending Play, you would leave the event with a solid understanding of how organizations that are similar to your own are tackling video challenges and then moving their business forward using video. So whether you want to learn new video strategies, or you want to network with your peers, or dive into video technology, Play has it all. And it could also be a chance for you and I to meet in person, because I'm going to be there both days. Now, I'm speaking on May 15th at 11 a.m. on how salespeople can use video to engage the modern buyer. Now, remember, Sarah Larson has provided a 20% discount code. So just go to play.brightcove.com. And when you register, use the code PLAYPC2019. That's play PC, as in personal computer, 2019. Fantastic. All right. Number 5.
This is so great. Modeling. So modeling is wonderful because there's always someone who succeeded. At this point, there's not necessarily new. We're innovating. There's very few things that are absolutely 100% new. Most of it is an innovation. So there's someone who's already succeeded and done something similar to what we want to do. And you don't have to follow everything. We're taught in, my generation to look at someone and do what they did. But doing what Bernie does is not going to work for Meshell. And what does Bernie believe about what he's doing? I can model a belief because then the belief will transform for what it is that I'm actually doing. And how does that work for sales professionals is I'm not going to do exactly what the rest of the sales team does, and I don't need to do exactly what the marketing or the way marketing's deliver it. I must model it for who I am and add my own uniqueness to it. What I tell people, you're the secret sauce to every sale.
That's fantastic. And so I want to ask a question here about coaching. How does a sales leader coach his or her team to do this modeling? Because this can be, I don't know if intimidating is the right way to say it, Meshell, but it can be maybe a difficult thing for some people to really wrap their head around.
Right. It is. This is challenging because I even find that, being a sales leader myself, when people ask me about selling, they always ask me what to do. And I go back to one of my favorites, start with why. My question is, why are you doing it? Because that's what makes it unique. Your answer to that is why. So having each individual member of the sales team understand their why to it is how they become self-directed or self-motivated, right? And you tie that unique why to the modeling of the other activities, that's when it begins to morph into you. And that's when it becomes your own sauce. Right? It's like I take my grandmother's recipe and I change out one of the extracts and add another egg and cut the butter in half. Now it's my recipe for a cake, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One of the things that we talk a lot about at Vengreso and we do with our clients is we talk about this concept of vaulted content, meaning content that salespeople can access behind a quote unquote vault. It's a metaphor for private access. So what I'm wondering is if vaulted content can apply here to help salespeople embrace modeling and use modeling by accessing certain pieces of content that can help them do the modeling more effectively in a way that is, again, embracing the belief, but then implementing it their way.
Oh, absolutely. And I do recall you mentioning that the vaulted content, having something that is separate and unique to that team, right? That is only for them, gives them that sense. It's what unites and uniforms the team, and they're using it together in unison, but differently as an individual.
All right, terrific. So we are at step number 6. And again, you do this over how many days? 45 days, right?
It's 45 days.
We're not even at 45 minutes and we're already at step number 6.
I know. And it's actually amazing. Before I go into step 6 is that people initially think, oh my God, 45 days because of what other sales trainings they may have taken. And we're delivering it because we're taking you past that conscious confidence of I have to, I need to, I ought to, I should, because that's willpower. That gets exhaustive. It's tiring. It becomes obligation. And we're getting you to, as you mentioned earlier, like the athletes who practice to be prepared, where it becomes when the ball is thrown to you, you're not thinking about, I have to succeed or make the shot. You just take the shot. And that's where this gets to that intelligent risk of step 6 is when you have done all of these other days and you're in this week. Now you've actually been applying and implementing step 6 already because of your level of comfort. You've already established your visions. We have you reading them every day. You've been setting aside time to warm up before every call by having an ultimate performance state. We've gone through calling styles. We've talked about objections. We've talked about preparing yourself before the sale. So all of this is included in throughout. And this is for the sales leader, how they communicate this to the team as well, how to prepare the team, how to set a standard for your team. And so now what we're doing is taking all of that and having you consistently become comfortable being uncomfortable. And I tell people success is simply the ability to have the confidence to stand and flex and adapt no matter what the circumstance. You can practice a sales call or a leadership call as many times as you want, but as soon as you make the call, all bets are off. And the ability to be available to still offer a solution confidently in the face of your team or that client is what creates success.
Okay, so then an example of this could be someone's having a sales conversation with a prospective customer. They're doing some storytelling, and then maybe the customer responds in a way that maybe you weren't really hoping that they would respond. Maybe they didn't necessarily connect with the story that you told. They pushed back on like the concept. But you're saying that at this point, the confidence is there to be able to adapt and respond to that situation. Is that what you're saying, Meshell?
Exactly. And when you think about the marketing department, they are communicating this to the sales team and having them show them the ways that they can flex and adapt in the midst of those calls, like utilizing this information, showing them how you have the varied responses depending on what the objection is or what they might say or, the questions they may ask. So having your sales team prepared with the language and the information that you've created to give them.
Terrific. All right. I feel like I want to go to another step, but I think, right, the 6 steps.
We've covered the 6 steps.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this was not in 45 days, in case anyone was thinking that maybe they've been on a time warp. So, Meshell, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to recap these 6 steps for building high-performing sales teams. And then when I'm done, I'm going to ask you to elaborate or fill in any holes or anything you want to just comment on. And I want to emphasize that we began our conversation with the why for my listener. Why is this topic, 6 steps for building high-performing sales teams, important to marketing professionals? And you pointed out so eloquently that the modern buyer is very savvy. They buy for emotional reasons, and then they justify it with logic. And marketing needs to partner with sales to deliver the content and the language to really equip them to execute on these 6 steps. You also gave us a little introduction to the National Association of Sales Professionals, where you are the head of global sales development. And it's the largest online community of sales professionals where you are empowering sales professionals and leaders to be their best. And so in the 6 steps, you said that step number 1, first of all, you said this is across a 45-day challenge. And so step number 1 is to build a foundation with a vision for your sales success. It really is to create that vision, and that is to help you cross the line from being an unconscious competent to becoming a conscious competent across the 45 days. So creating that vision for your success as a successful sales professional. Then step number 2 is to do an analysis of your current habits. And this is both an analysis of mindset and skill set. So you can identify what those habits are and break the ones that don't align with your new vision. And this is, you said you don't know what you don't know yet. So this is where marketing can help salespeople with, again, content and messaging. That's going to be a consistent theme, by the way, by helping them step outside of their comfort zone to break those old habits. And then step number 3, you said, is to really focus on building the new habits, focusing on becoming the conscious competent and teaching the sales team to really know what you need to do to create that success. You said this is around the 21-day mark, and you're building these new habits, and you're really beginning to kind of create both a comfort zone, but also there's some discomfort in knowing the fact that you've got to kind of break those old habits to really make the new habits stick. And once again, recurring theme, marketing messaging needs to be able to reinforce the implementation of those new habits. And then step number 4, and I think, Meshell, this is my favorite, I think, is disciplined imagination. And this is where you said you have to invoke in your mind the memory, which is the past, focus, which is the present, and the imagination, which is the future. And you said storytelling is really the best way to do this, to grab the attention of the people that we're speaking to and hold their attention, asking them the right questions to help them imagine the outcome that you can help them achieve. And then once again, there's that recurring theme. Marketing can collaborate with sales leadership to make sure that the right questions are delivered, the right messaging to help the salespeople, again, get through that imagination, that disciplined imagination with the messaging that can help the customer, the prospect, understand and imagine that outcome. And then step number 5, you said, is modeling. You said, hey, someone's already done this before. There's not a whole lot of innovation left in this world, at least in terms of maybe sales process. I don't know about that, but I think you make a compelling point. You don't have to do everything that someone else has done. You can certainly model someone's belief and then apply it to your own style. And then when someone is coaching that, make sure you start with the why, what makes it unique to you, and make sure that each individual understands their why. And this is where we talked about the value of having some vaulted content that can be provided by marketing to allow each salesperson to access content that can make the message delivery unique to them by modeling it according to the belief, but modeling it in their unique style. And then step number 6, finally, if I have any breath left, is intelligent risk. And this is where you really implement steps 1 through 5. At this point, you know what you need to do. You are a conscious, competent. You've developed both the comfort and the confidence to take some intelligent risk. Preparation is key. Delivery is what it's about here. You said success is the ability to be confident to adapt to any circumstance. And in sales, those circumstances can change by the minute in real-time conversations. And again, the recurring theme is that marketing can provide the messaging so that a sales professional can be adaptive in the situation while he or she is taking that intelligent risk and implementing the 6 techniques that have been taught to them across this 45-day challenge. So, Meshell, I'm out of breath. What would you like to add to my summary?
Well, one of the statistics that I saw recently, and it's the partnership of why it reinforces the partnership of marketing and sales, is that 91% of top performing sales organizations collaborate across departments to close their deals. And that's the languaging of we. So again, this is just the reinforcement of how you create. What does that look like for your marketing department and your sales team to go out and have that we attitude so that you are closing more big deals?
So, Meshell, you said 91% of sales organizations are successful when they collaborate. Do you know where that statistic comes from?
Yes, Bernie, it actually comes from G2crowd.com sales statistics.
Fantastic. We will be sure to link that up in the show notes page at Vengreso.com. Well, Meshell, thank you so much for joining me here on this episode of the podcast. Before we let you go, how can people connect with you and learn more about what you've got going on and everything you're doing at NASP?
The best way to hook up with me is on LinkedIn, and it's my name. It's Meshell, Meshell Baker, and you will find my profile and just send me a message or a linked mail, and I'd love to connect with you to see how the National Association of Sales Professionals could support you and your sales team's success in 2019.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Meshell.
Thank you, Bernie.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at Vengreso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengreso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at Vengreso.com. And that's 1 S in Vengreso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.